20 Days with Julian and Little Bunny by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Read by Frank Blissett. August 7th, Thursday. We got up rather later than usual this morning, not till 7 o'clock by our timepiece, which, however, is 20 minutes faster than the village clock. A still, warm morning, with the sun already shining fervently, though muffled by here and there a cloud. We went on our customary Milky Way. The aspect of the hills was varied from what it has been for some time past by a sunny haze that involved distant objects in a still greater remoteness. It was a lazy morning. I myself felt it particularly so, and the little man acknowledged the same influence by the absence of somewhat of his ordinary friskiness. But so did not 2 or 3 squirrels whom we saw scampering along on the tops of the fences. Julian talked about poison flowers, with which, according to him, the roadside is bordered, and which are not to be touched with the naked hand. After breakfast, we gathered some beans, then I frizzled his wool. It is observable that his hair does not begin to present a respectable appearance until the day after I have been at work on it, so that, every morning, I regularly spoil my own handiwork of the day before. His patience under the operation is most exemplary. In the course of the forenoon it became showery, so that we could make no excursions further than the shed and barn. Mr. Waldo, who had one of his little girls with him in the field, brought her hither for a few minutes. She is quite a pretty child, about 3 years old, with large dark eyes and a queer little merry face. Julian kept himself in reserve and offered few or no attentions, except to run and get Bunny at my suggestion. He is getting to be a boy in this respect. She was much tickled with Bunny, whom she took to be a kind of little cat, and I was not without hopes of disposing of this valuable animal to Mr. Waldo for his daughter's behoof. But he did not offer to take Bunny. I talked with him on Fourierism and kindred subjects, and he seems to be a man of thought and intelligence. He said that Cornelius was going to the village today, and I gave him a letter which I had written to Phoebe to be put in the post office, which I rather regret, as I shall have no certitude of its being mailed. So I must write another before Saturday. It has continued quite showery through the afternoon. Just now there was a very picturesque scene, if I could but paint it in words. Across our valley, from east to west, there was a heavy canopy of clouds, almost resting on the hills on either side. It did not extend southward so far as Monument Mountain, which lay in sunshine, and with a sunny cloud midway on its bosom, and from the midst of our storm, beneath our black roof of clouds, we looked out upon this bright scene where the people were enjoying beautiful weather. The clouds hung so low over us that it was like being in a tent, the entrance of which was drawn up, permitting us to see the sunny landscape. This lasted for several minutes, but at last the shower stretched southward and quite snatched away Monument Mountain and made it invisible, although now it is mistily reappearing. Julian has got rid of the afternoon in a miscellaneous way, making a whip and a bow and arrows, and playing jackstraws with himself for an antagonist. It was less than an hour, I think, after dinner, when he began to tease for something to eat, although he dined abundantly on rice and string beans. I allowed him a slice of bread in the middle of the afternoon, and an hour afterwards he began to bellow at the full stretch of his lungs for more, and beat me terribly because I refused it. He is really as strong as a little giant. He asked me just now, "What are sensible questions?" I suppose with a view to asking me some. After the most rampagious resistance, the old gentleman was put to bed at 7 o'clock. I ought to mention that Mrs. Peters is quite attentive to him, in her grim way. Today, for instance, we found 2 ribbons on his old straw hat, which must have been of her sewing on. She encourages no familiarity on his part, nor is he in the least drawn towards her, nor, on the other hand, does he exactly seem to stand in awe, but he recognizes that there is to be no communication beyond the inevitable, and, with that understanding, she awards him all substantial kindness. To bed not long after 9. That was 20 Days with Julian and Little Bunny, August 7th, 1851, by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Read by Frank Blissett.